Let's go.
Alright, so let's get into first and foremost the top 4 decks in the current meta and some up and comers. So let's see. We'll go through their win condition, as well as their strengths and weaknesses. The time, let's get going. So firstly, if you're playing the current meta, I'm sure you've seen these 4 decks. We have Dragapult on top with a 30% share, followed by Raging Bolt, Garvdevior EX, and the up and comer since Destined Rivals, Grimmsnarl. Those are the 4 biggest decks in the format by a large margin. Every other deck, the closest deck to them is at 5%. Grimmsnarl number 4 is at 13. So that's more than twice, almost 3 times the market share of every other deck in the format. So just off that, at least 1 in 3 matches you'll have online or even competitively will be one of these top 4 decks. I'll bring an honorable mention to both Joltik Box as well as the Ethan's Typhlosion deck. They have actually been on the rise and have been doing amazingly since the release of White Bone Black Flare, as well as since they have started picking up pace in the meta. Let's get into it. First deck we'll be going through will be Dragapult. Let's go. Typical Dragapult deck list here. So on screen you'll see how much of them they are usually placed in decks, and we see some of their placements as of recent. Decently good placements. The most common cards in this deck, as you can see here, would be the Dragapult lines, the Dory, Birdew, Pheasantipity, some bosses, Ionos. There we go. Right, so this isn't the entire deck breakdown, just the most common cards in the deck. So of course, they have to get up to Dragapult. Dragapult deals the 200 to the front, 60 to the back, and you'll be able to take some big turns with multiple prizes. Because that 6 damage that it does with that 2 energy attack, it's a problem. And of course, just 2 energy for the attack, really easy to set up in a format where we have Crispin as well as Sparkling Crystal, which allows you to use the attack for 1 less of the energy cost. So this is one of the aggro decks, because as you can see, it's pretty quick. They seek to set up as quick as possible and mow it down. There are some mid-range and control variants, but for the most part is one of the more aggressive decks. The monkey is there to supplement the damage, so 16 start moving damage off, because that 320 hit point place there is really hard to cross, and this helps take some of that damage off to turn this into 90 to give you those 2, 3, and 4 prize turns. Of course, Birdew in here, the all-star currently in most decks with space, to just lock them up from items, and there you go, for Pheasantipiti's additional draw in addition to the Dracloaks, and we have bosses to set up those knockouts. So effectively, that's how your deck functions. The strength side of the deck is in the amount of card selection you have with the Dracloaks, as well as the damage spreading, so you'll be able to get over things that prevent damage from the bench, because it doesn't do damage, it places damage counters, which is different. So it's a lot of fiddling and maths to keep track of it, but that's roughly the breakdown of the deck. Most popular because it's very simple, very straightforward. You get him down, you start putting damage, and they need to get over one of these. You could set up more draws to play another one, and then just keep going. So once the ball starts rolling, try stacking up that damage and see if you can take your 6 prizes in 2 or 3 attacks. Usually doesn't take more than that, because in a format where there are very few Pokemon who have been played in the EX format, so EX Pokemon who have a little over 200 hit points, you could spread a 60 to 20 bench, 200 in front, a boss, and things like Fez and Iron Hands. You'd be able to literally boss up the one from the bench, kill this one, damage counters, kill the one on the bench, and take 4 prizes with 2 attacks. And still have a bit of damage left over to kill your opponent's Birdew or other little things on the bench. And that's not counting the Monkey Dory. And after playing 1 prizes, you might be able to actually take 2 knockouts to not fall behind in the prize race. When this 200 kills most 1 prizes, and then the stacking damage kills another, so take 2 prizes, 2 prizes, 2 prizes, so you don't get knocked out of the prize race there. No reason why this can't be and isn't the most popular deck currently, but it's having a bit of a fall off, as you see here, these 5th and 6th places. So let's go on to the second deck we want to mention here, which is Raging Bolt. And this is the box version of Raging Bolt, named box because you'll be using the Hoot Hoot and Noctowls to actually get into the supporters and items you need. So you'll always have access to that Crispin or that Cedar. We have Raging Bolt here. The main thing is that second attack that costs a rock and electric. This got any number basic energy, just does 70 damage. Good boy. And we have Tealmas, another all-star here, which allows you to draw a card by placing a grass energy on it from your hand. So that's energy acceleration as well, that you use as food for the Raging Bolt. So you get a couple of these on the bench, got him, Cedar to bring back energy from the grave to the Raging Bolt, a couple discard outlets, and you have your engine going right there. You draw cards to get energy, discard them to put them in grave, put them on him. Crispin brings 2, Cedar brings 1, you place 1, that's 3, that's 210 already. You got 2 weapons, that's 280, that's almost anything in the format. Pretty easy, pretty quick, easily one of the most aggressive decks in the form. Again, so main pieces are the Ogre Pawn and the Raging Bolt. You also have the Latias EX here, which should be a prime target for knocking out, because it allows for the free retreat of all the Pokemon in deck except for the knocked out, which means that they can't stick you because they have that high retreat cost of 3. So that's there to make sure you don't get hit with those lock strategies or those strategies that increase your retreat cost. We have the one prize Baby Bolt here, where it allows you to actually attack the opponent's bench, so you'll be able to squeak out those little knockouts and to knock out those Pokemon that will give you a bit of trouble. That'll be things like the Cornerstone Mask, which can be knocked by things with effects, in case you don't have access to Big Bolt, or also in the Mimikyu, which has resistance from Pokemon that has, well, resistance to EXs, and the Cornerstone actually has resistance to Pokemon with effects, which you have many of in this deck. Bolt can get through that, but he can't get through the Mimikyu. So you have all out there. This is for after discarding a little bit of draw, a bit more draw, to make sure you get the Pokemon you need to get. And of course, to search for any number of your items. This here, the Slitherwing, actually is a tech to help you knock out some Pokemon that you won't be able to here. Those things with rock resistances, so again, the Iron Hands and a few other little stuff, because it does exactly 140. It also takes out the Roaring Moon 1 prizes that don't have the Ancient Boost capsule on them. So those are the techs of the Pokemon here, and then we get into the supporters and items. Again, discard outlets for energy, bit of retrieval here. We don't want them playing things like tools right now. You want your board a bit extended so you can get access to that with the Teal Mask. And thing to note, Noctowl only works if there's a terror on the bench, so if you get rid of the Ogre Pawn, they won't be able to use the Noctowl. So targeting is also a priority, so they usually try to set up the Teal Mask so they can use the Noctowls to get to the other cards they need. Cedar brings from the graveyard, and Crispin brings from the deck. So again, we don't know the exact numbers everyone runs, but we can see here the most common numbers run here. Again, the third deck is Garvdevior. So again, we're going to just look at the key pieces, and then we'll get into how to beat them and the shifts to the meta. So Garvdevior brings Psychic Energy from the graveyard to any of your Pokemon, but when you do, you put 2 damage counters on it. So it basically feeds all the Psychic Pokemon in this deck. The monkeys move damage from your Pokemon to your opponent's Pokemon, so you get energy and you use the damage to actually hurt their Pokemon. We have things like Screamtail, where they do more damage based on damage on them, so you move a lot of damage to your Screamtail by moving Psychic Energy on it, so you're not restricted by that 1 energy from your hand per turn, and it does heavy damage to any Pokemon, even on the bench, so that's pretty good. We have this here as a counter for Dragon type Pokemon, just like Dragapult. So there we go. Also things like the areas you're on Adept decks, where you have a big field, you'll be able to capitalize on that. Again, draw power and discard outlets for your Psychic Energy, more discard outlets. And we have our A-Spec as Secret Box, as it both allows us to discard as well as bring the things that we need. Not too much here, so let's go, and that leads us into the 4th most popular deck in the format, form of Marnie's Grimmsnarl. So again, for lines of these, doesn't do anything. Main part of the deck here is Marnie's Grimmsnarl with this Punk Up that allows you to bring up to 5 Dark Energy and attach them to your Dark Pokemon. Well, not Dark Pokemon, sorry, your Marnie Pokemon, anyhow you like. It takes 2 to use the attack. It does 180 to the active and 30 to one of your bench Pokemon. Already pretty strong there because it powers itself up. But they use Monkey and the combination Frostlass to damage your own Pokemon and spread that off with your monkeys, so you'll be able to just off-put that same 2 price energy like Dragapult, except it actually supplies its own energy and has a very good engine in the form of Spikemuth Gem, which allows you to search for Marnie's Pokemon once per turn, secret box to bring a rare candy or a search outlet or anything, and a lot of draw. Because what you're seeking to do is actually just play the field card, have one of these, you just look for the rare candy, then you search for your stadium to bring your Grimmsnarl, rare candy top, off to the races, and you just have some damage supplementation here. And of course, one of these to not get you stuck because everything has one retreat except the Grimmsnarl, but again, competitive meta. So rescue board is out and balloon is in because this does reduce by 1 and yeah, the other one does a reduce by 2 across the board. So yeah, pretty good. It does have that clause that if it adds to your less hit points has no retreat, we're not too concerned about that. And again, that's the top 4 decks in the format.